This is the world of Salesforce and Dropbox, HubSpot and Evernote, a world unthinkable without cloud software services. Most businesses and consumers use SaaS every day to get work done. Driven by the internet and ever-expanding availability of bandwidth, SaaS has come to dominate our lives in a very short span of time. But developing a defining service, often ahead of its time, getting users to engage, secure funding, protect IP, and building a truly remarkable and successful SaaS is not an easy task. SaaS Stories brings conversations with the dreamers and visionaries who dared to think ahead. How they built their SaaS, genesis, struggles, trials, tribulations, and eventually success. Welcome to SaaS Stories. Thank you for your time and for joining us in this session. I have a favor to ask. While you continue to listen to the podcast, please leave a comment or rating at iTunes or wherever else you get your podcasts from. I personally look at each comment and will give you a shout out to each of you in our following episodes. It means a lot to hear from you. Welcome to this episode of SaaS Stories. Startups are the engine for growth in most economies. We caught up with Roberto Crocchi, Managing Director of Microsoft for Startups in the Middle East and Africa region, to discuss the startup landscape and the work he has been doing with startups at Microsoft and the new programs they're launching.
Sometimes there is a little bit too stress in trying to, hey, we want to build the next Silicon Valley, or we want to build another Silicon Valley here, right? So I believe each ecosystem has their own assets or their own specific things that you can leverage, right? So I believe also this place, this region, has something unique as well that can turn into the real assets, right? Or the real strength of building an ecosystem around it. Think about the current situation, like governments that are willing to diversify economy from oil to knowledge-based. This is kind of a unique geopolitical setting where there might be a lot of opportunities coming out of that. Also, the unique position here, right? So if you look at the world map, Dubai specifically and the UAE have a central role in connecting across different regions, right? So you have Africa immediately here across the Middle East, then you have Europe and Asia close by. India is 2 hours flight from here, and then of course this bridge with the US. This normalization happening now with the UAE and Israel, for example, as well. So there are opportunities to give hope to the next generations.
Roberto has over 20 years experience working at companies like Microsoft and Google, and his passion lies in innovation, startups, and people. Relationship driven, he has bridged the gap between corporates and startups across more than 20 countries, helping them develop real solutions that solve real world problems. In his current role as the Managing Director of Microsoft for Startups, Roberto is building Microsoft's new division from scratch, including spearheading its expansion and innovation strategy with the vision to foster a collaborative startup ecosystem. Connecting the dots between startups, government agencies, and private sector organizations, Roberto helps organizations adopt the innovation mindset and leverage the technology and nimbleness that startups provide. His vision is to inspire 1 million students and entrepreneurs to build homegrown tech startups that evolve to become global unicorns. An in-demand international speaker, Roberto enjoys reading hardcover books, hiking, running, and spending time with his family. He has summited K2, the second highest mountain in the world. Now, on to this exciting episode with Roberto Crocchi.
Roberto, welcome to SaaS Stories. I'm so happy to have you here, and I'm glad that I could chase you from Dubai and catch you in Italy.
Yeah, this is great. Actually, you chased me at the right time, so with a big smile, because the final of the Euro Cup happened yesterday.
Yes.
So we were able to get it back home.
Yes. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, thank you. I mean, it's just nice living it, in your own country, right? So, definitely look forward to catch up and have a good conversation.
Absolutely. So Roberto, before we dive into the work and the current program that we intend to talk about that you have with Microsoft Startups, why don't you tell a bit about your background and the wonderful work you have been doing with startups over the last several years, including at Google and now at Microsoft? Give us a sort of a glimpse of Roberto.
Okay. No, look, my story, starts probably with the university. I have an engineering background, so always been passionate about tech. And I had the opportunity when I was at university to take this Erasmus exchange program, which is a European program to study abroad. So I went to study my last year at university and then the final thesis in Spain, which is similar to Italy but different as well, different way of looking at things, doing things, and then a lot of international friends that you gain for life. So it was something I evaluated very, very well. Then I jumped into consulting in my first jobs. And I decided at some point to leave this stressful consulting life for an even more stressful life, joining a startup. It was still the early 2000s, so it was one of the few startups that were able to survive this sort of the internet bubble of the early 2000s. It was an e-commerce multi-channel business model focused on the design and the furniture industry. So it was a 2 years and a half of great learnings, right? So when you work in the founding team of a small startup that is growing, and you end up doing a bit of everything. So I had a chance to see launching an e-commerce, launching retail stores in Milan, London, and Paris, and managing all the aspects of this new company. And then I had an opportunity to join Google. And I joined Google in a way that Google acquired a company called DoubleClick. DoubleClick in 2008. So I joined in 2009, so early on, right? So we were a small team across Europe for sure. So I was in charge of developing the business across Southern Europe, Eastern Europe, Middle East and Africa. And it was like working within a startup within Google, which at the time was still not as huge as the company we know today, right? So we were most likely around 11,000 people back in those days, and growing very fast. So, but it was a new division, a new product, a new sort of business within Google. So that was really exciting. It was great to see that hyper growth, making it growing across different countries. And then I end up in Dubai when we set up local teams then in the other countries across Southern Europe and Eastern Europe, and then the focus became more emerging markets. So I decided to move to Dubai to manage also the same thing across emerging markets, from Russia to South Africa, including Turkey, Israel, Middle East, and the rest of the African continent. So it's been an amazing learning experience to understand, advertisers, to understand publishers, to understand media agencies, independent agencies, how to monetize data. So working also with nascent businesses and startups as well that were looking to disrupt, some experiences to how to leverage data to reinvent new business models and monetize the data, right, around users in a good way. So a lot of learnings there. Really loved the experience. And when the opportunity came, Microsoft was looking for someone to start some startup division from scratch in Middle East and Africa. And I had an opportunity to move with Google in the US. But at that time, also from a personal perspective, I really wanted to still, be in Dubai with my family. So I jumped on this new role with great excitement. And also because there was no one covering it before. So it was kind of a green field to shape it, right? To build it from scratch, define a little bit the strategy, building the team, deciding the go-to-market, deciding the partnerships, and whenever you build something like that, it doesn't happen often to take on similar roles in big corporations, right? So most of the times you end up in the routine, in the consolidated or core business, and but probably this is a little bit a common thing also between Google and Microsoft. So I started as well in Google in a sort of a startup within Google. So building something new from scratch within this organization is more exciting in my point of view.
Right.
What are the areas of opportunity do you see here in terms of when you're looking at startups? What is the mix that you're looking at when you're looking at this? When you project your thought that this is where I see this going, what do you see?
Yeah, look, I see. First of all, I see that sometimes there is a little bit too stress in trying to, hey, we want to build the next Silicon Valley, or we want to build another Silicon Valley here, right? So I believe each ecosystem has their own assets or their own specific things that you can leverage, right? So I wouldn't be much stressed about being another Silicon Valley. Of course, there are definitely beautiful learnings that everybody can get out of places like the Silicon Valley, don't get me wrong. Yeah. But I believe also this place, this region, has something unique as well that can turn into the real assets, right, or the real strength of building an ecosystem around it. And there are many things around, for example, think about, we mentioned before things like the drivers in the economic and also the demographics, but think about the current situation, like governments that are willing to diversify economy from oil to knowledge base. This is kind of a unique geopolitical setting where there might be a lot of opportunities coming out of that. Also, the unique position here, right? So if you look at the world map, Dubai specifically and the UAE have a central role in connecting across different regions, right? So you have Africa immediately here across the Middle East, then you have Europe and Asia close by. India is 2 hours flight from here, and then of course this bridge with the US. This normalization happening now with the UAE and Israel, for example, as well. Yeah. So there are opportunities to leverage on this mandate to diversify economy, on this long-term vision from government here to build a society and wealth across the region, and there are these unique assets that can give hope to the rest of the next generations. So this is one thing. And then of course there are also industries where as we have seen for a long time in Africa, the whole thing with mobile, for example, penetration, and how certain technologies have been leapfrogged, right? Because think about micropayments in Africa because of the necessity that you have in some of these countries, right? So these are also some trends that are really nice to deep dive and to explore. And then there are industries where probably can be turned into the real areas where this region can build an edge on, right? So if you think about, take the UAE, for example, 90% of the food in the UAE is currently imported. Right. So what about what can be done in terms of sustainability? What can be done in terms of food security and food tech, in terms of supply chain management as well, which is embedded as well into the food industry, for example. So or think about all the management of freights and logistics and goods. Dubai, for example, being a terminal with the port or the airport with managing a huge percentage of global transactions, right? So there is so much material, so much goods inventory that is stocked into warehouses. But what about the future of 3D printing, for example, and enabling something different to be printed just in case instead of just on time, right? So these new concepts, these new models, being for example the UAE a big logistic hub globally, are things where there might be definitely more innovation happening. As well as, for example, we see a huge focus also on healthcare and also associated to healthcare, life sciences, biotech, and well-being as well, mindfulness, and so on and so forth. All of that in the same area where, leveraging technology in a way where we can increase the quality of life of people. This is something, for example, that is very high on the agenda of government here, and that could lead to more innovation in this space. And all of this together with the advancement in policies and regulations, right? So we know that there are still some barriers because at the end of the day, this ecosystem started building entrepreneurs and printing entrepreneurs, later than other ecosystems. So the necessity, it takes time, right? But at the same time, the advancement in regulations and policies and the speed with which government here can make those things happen is quite impressive.
Yeah.
It's quite impressive because the mandate is clear. There are entities or regulatory entities, policymakers like think about in the UAE, the DIFC, ADGM, and not only to talk about the FSI, financial services industries, but there is a lot of things going on there to allow for more innovation, for more development, for more connectedness locally, but also globally. And there is a real willingness to stay ahead of the curve, right? So to become really a hub for innovation, to attract talent, even if the conversation should also be a retained talent.
Right.
But all of these elements, all of these ingredients are there. So you see that the maturity is rapidly growing in the ecosystem. We start seeing more exits happening. Of course, the numbers are still dwarfed by the more mature ecosystem, but the signals of a live ecosystem starts being there. And this is exciting because, as you said before, historically this ecosystem has been, or this region has been naturally geared towards more consumer-facing, consumer-based businesses, right? But with the digitization of corporates, with more innovation happening, with more policies being rolled out, we see a trend where corporates are also willing to be part of this conversation, and this leads more B2B startups as well to be developed. And when it comes to SaaS, of course, SaaS is a model where we see that even if we are still nascent as an ecosystem, we see that there is potential there for the next wave of entrepreneurs and generations of founders here to build new models that can take the benefits of subscriptions or software as a service and tap into corporates that will have, by the time, built the digital infrastructure that they need also to make this happen, right? So in this, we are very excited to the opportunities ahead. And the fact that Microsoft, for example, invested into local data centers here in the UAE, for example,
right.
And there will be more in other regions, and also the other tech players, of course, investing more heavily in the region is just a good sign. Because with this increased computing capacity, with this increased ability to build on the cloud at reduced costs across the region with security, reliability, privacy, and so on, of course, this will also be an enabling factor to have more of these tech startups flourishing and thriving across the region.
So let's get into the nitty-gritty of the program. I mean, are you going to run it as an incubator where startups from all over these countries in this region, so Africa and Middle East and so on, they all come to Dubai and they spend like several months there in your incubator? Or is it something, it'll be sort of like a virtual incubator where you'll go and sort of support them wherever they are? What are your plans today?
Absolutely. This is a great question. Look, the way we look at it is, for sure, there is a premium and there is still a real value in human connection, I mean, physical connections, right? So, right. But at the end of the day, we also manage a very wide region. If you think about from Turkey, Pakistan to Levant and Jordan, Lebanon, and then the whole GCC area and then Africa, it's a wide region. So we believe that we can maximize our impact if these initiatives we run in a hybrid model where the core components or the wider availability of content will be online, and the experience is also built online, not discarding the fact that, of course, we are thinking about situations where, of course, we want to take people together as much as possible and as much as allowed, of course, by the current situation. So the way we are launching, we launched our initiatives here in the region is trying to be very much inclusive of the whole region and allowing access to these opportunities to founders that maybe historically they had more issues in access because they were maybe working from tier 2, tier 3 cities, say, where it's always been more a barrier, right, for people to get to the mainstream where VCs, the real capital is, and sometimes is just more difficult. So being virtual, we have this unique benefit where we can democratize, if you want, this innovation, this access to markets, access to technology. And we can, by doing that, we can maximize the impact. So the programs that we announced recently, so we just completed the Highway to 100 Unicorns, and we are in the middle now of selecting the startups that will join GrowthX Accelerator. We can deep dive into the nitty-gritty and the details of these programs to share more with the audience what these programs are about and what is maybe before that, what is the vision for Microsoft for startups in the region.
It's time for a short break. Roberto was outlining his new programs and how he wants to impact the startup ecosystem. I requested Roberto to outline the vision behind these programs and then elaborate on how each work. Stay with us. You are listening to a Business Podcast Network original. Podcasting is the fastest growing content marketing opportunity, which is untapped. We can help you craft your audio strategy and help leverage the wide reach and easy streaming capability that the smartphone penetration provides. It is easy, it is powerful and personal. Talk to us to find out how podcasting can help you build your brand and reach out to your targets like never before. Write to us at bpn@bizcast.in. That is bpn@bizcast.in. Business Podcast Network. Podcasts end to end. Welcome back. I'm Shubhanjan Sarkar, your host for SaaS Stories and founder of Pitchling, the buyer-seller engagement platform. Right before the break, I asked Roberto to outline the vision behind the programs to develop the startup ecosystem and then elaborate on how each work. Listen in. Let's start with the vision and then let's talk about the nitty-gritty of the program. And finally, I'd also like to know what are you aiming for? How many companies are you trying to impact? What kind of VC ecosystem do you see which can plug into this? Because finally, after they come out of the incubator, they need to be funded and they need to go to the next stretch, right? So basically, let's start with the vision and then let's move with the program. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, our vision and our mission, consequently, we rooted those into Microsoft mission, right? Which is Microsoft mission is to empower every single person in the organization in the world to achieve more. So we made that ours in a way that we want to empower every single founder and startup in our region to achieve more. This is the big vision, of course, right? But of course, we need to start small and expand, right? So because we want to do things that are executable, but also that we can have a model that can prove the value, so that then we can scale. As if you were a founder of a startup, you don't start scaling from day one. First, you want to achieve product market fit. Once you understand there is an addressable market and it's the right time to scale, then you go for scale and growth.
Right.
It's the same approach, because at the end of the day, we are a startup here within Microsoft Middle East and Africa. So the vision is definitely, if you want, going beyond credits, for example. Historically, as a tech vendor, startups turn to these players, including Microsoft, to get access to technologies like cloud. Give me some credits, I can build my product, I can subsidize it, and I reduce my cost. Fair enough. We believe this is still important, but we want to move the conversation towards value. So what is that we can provide as value to startups to allow them to grow, to allow them to be successful, to turn into sustainable businesses? So definitely, in our experience, what we identified is there are two areas where we can have an impact and deliver value to startups. One is access to technology, which is beyond just giving credits or licenses for products, technology that Microsoft has, which of course is part of it, but it's also that level of proactive services in terms of how are you building your tech? How can we enable you to build a great product, a product that is scalable, but also secure, that can build on privacy and ensure privacy for their users, right? How can we enable you to optimize the costs of the technology or integrate with third-party apps, whether it's other Microsoft products, but also with a very open approach with other third-party apps that would be relevant for the product that the startup is building. So access to technology is key because it's foundational, right? So if you don't have a great product, a product that is secure, reliable, scalable, a product that users are going to use, then of course this is where we can add a lot of value to startups. The other area, though, where we really want to differentiate and where we believe we have a unique proposition is access to markets. Where for us, access to markets is not just a mere introduction to corporates, but first of all, it's a journey. It's a journey, and it has to be a journey because it wouldn't make sense to introduce a startup that is not ready yet to get into a corporate, for example, if you're talking about B2B startup, that way, right? So we want to introduce startups at the right time because maybe we were able to help them during the journey to be more appealing to an enterprise, or to teach them how to navigate an enterprise, how to sell to an enterprise, how to go to market, maybe reviewing their pricing strategy, maybe SaaSifying their product if they have not been SaaSified yet, and if it makes sense, right? So that's why we see it as a journey where the connections or introductions most likely won't happen day one. What happened day one is we sit down, we understand more what is the business model, how we can help with the go-to-market. Usually, especially with B2B SaaS companies, what we do is we take these companies onto the Microsoft Marketplace. The reason being is that by doing that, it's a vetting process. It's a vetting process for the startup because we can help a startup publish their solution, offering trials, building their own licenses, or becoming transactable. And all of these progressive levels of sophistication, of course, comes with technical and business vetting, so that a startup that goes through this journey actually gets sort of, it's not just a pure brand association with Microsoft, which of course it's very important for a startup, but it's also, I'm getting value out of this relationship because I am getting to understand how I can make my solution, available on something like a marketplace. How can I make my solution transactable? I can get in front of more buyers. Globally, how can I get or tap into a new market without having a business development there, and so on and so forth. And if you go through this journey and you get traction, then we reward those startups that have been patient to go through the journey, to get the learnings and to share their feedbacks, and we turn them into partners. And with startups that become partners, and we call these partners co-sell ready, it means that we have a co-sell motion. So we sell with startups that get at that level, because at that level we believe that that solution is really enterprise ready. So the job that we do is taking market ready startups, making them enterprise ready, turning them into partners, and then we have a process built in to sell with co-sell ready startups. That means our field sellers or our Microsoft partners will take solutions that are co-sell ready and present and help them close the deals with their corporate clients. So this is the ideal journey, right? So this is the vision that we have around where we can add value to startups, is whether access to technology, access to markets. Around these two pillars, we built different programs. One is Microsoft for Startups. The wider program is more a breadth motion, because of course we can onboard more startups that will receive these two pillars through credits, licenses, and support for access to technology, and support and go to market for access to markets. But it's more a breadth motion because of course we want to scale this to as many startups that meet the criteria as possible. So B2B startups that at least have an MVP and starts getting some traction and have at least one funding from angel investing on. Then we developed a new program which is more depth. And the vision and the objective with that program, which is called GrowthX Accelerator, is to bridge the gap between B2B startups and corporates. So what we did is we built a program where we have some corporate partners, and these corporate partners will put forward some specific challenges that they wish to solve for, and we will help recruit and select startups that are a good fit to work with the corporates and us for 3 months to work around those challenges. At this stage, we are not committing on a paid POC, even if, of course, we do know that the one thing that startups do not have is time, right? So we don't want to waste. But that's why the qualification of the challenges with the corporates and the selection and qualification of the startups, we spend a lot of time and we are very disciplined around the quality of the startups and corporates we bring on board. So this is GrowthX. So the first cohort is launching end of August. We closed applications the 7th of July, so we are now reviewing the applications we received and matching the startups with the corporates. In theory, this is the easiest part. Nothing is easy, but it's the easiest part in terms of the matching. Then the hard work will be then working for 3 months, 12 weeks, with the startups that will be selected and the corporates around those challenges. If a startup is not selected into GrowthX, to us, doesn't mean that they're not a good startup. It just means that we need to find the right fit between the corporates and the startups. Right? So everyone gets a chance to be selected also for the Breadth program, Microsoft for Startups. But then we need to be very specific on the corporate challenges that we have available for that cohort. In fact, a startup that might not be selected for cohort 1 might be selected for cohort 2, because maybe in cohort 2 we will have corporates that will put forward challenges that are more a fit for them.
Right.
So these are some of the programs that we launched. Around this, we built a Highway to 100 Unicorns as sort of a umbrella kind of engagement with the ecosystem. We just finished it last week. So basically it was 3 weeks of full engagement with all the different stakeholders we have in the ecosystem, from government to academia, to startups, to corporates, to ecosystem players, and so on and so forth. So we had 3 weeks of engagement with these players, and we had different themes every day around open innovation, around the founders, around the corporates, around the go-to-market, accessibility, government, and so on and so forth. So this was an effort to surface call to actions and insights from the ecosystem, increase, of course, awareness around what we are doing, and also, of course, around these applications, right? So drive more interest around also the applications for GrowthX or Microsoft startups. And Highway actually is a program that we first launched in India, where the objective there was to be very more inclusive of the tier 2 and tier 3 states, where there's a lot of talent with less access. So with that program, we aimed to drive more VC funds to those states, surface more founders that probably have had historically less access. If you think about it, all of the unicorns in India today coming from 3 cities only, right? So from New Delhi, from Bangalore and Mumbai. But there is a lot of talent spread across the whole country. So we took that program and we wanted to make it available as well across the broader Middle East and Africa region, to give access to founders that are maybe in more remote cities, in remote countries, that have maybe struggling with access to venture capital, and surface those ideas and insights as well. So there is also, I would say, a good principle of being very inclusive behind the launch of these programs. And finally, to complete the vision, other 2 pieces that we are working on to evolve and to make the vision we shared before more complete, that probably we will be able to launch in the next fiscal year. One is we want to tap into youth. We want to tap into youth because we believe that if we want to change mindsets across this region, where we still have some challenges when it comes to stigma about reputation and failure, for example, or really trying to think about real problems and try to find solutions for those, right? For example, we believe we need to start from youth. So we are finalizing a program to skill youth around entrepreneurship and also purpose-driven or human-centered leadership, which we believe is transformational to have the next generation of entrepreneurs from this region. And the second area where we are also working on is around social impact. So there are many things Microsoft is already doing in the realms of accessibility, for example, or sustainability. So we want, of course, to represent the startup voice founders in the region that are building solutions that can also impact across the society, as well as supporting investors that are into impact investing, right? So it's also about defining those metrics and measure what does impact means, right? So this is also another area that we think it's worth investing. So this is the picture we have, the programs we have. Let me know if there is anything we should go deeper into.
Yeah, sure. So what sectors? You mentioned health, you mentioned fintech. What areas do you see the maximum from what you have seen in terms of applications and whatever you're looking at and the other programs that you're running? What are the areas that are really in the growth mode in this region?
Absolutely. Look, we are agnostic in the sense that whatever tech startup that needs to build on technology, of course, we are happy to support. That said, of course, every region, as we said before, might have a more natural abundance or more interest towards giving certain industries because of the specific assets available in that region, right? So definitely we see a wave of financial services, fintech solutions. Financial services, I would mention, not just for banking, but also insurance and crypto, for example. So we see a big number of entrepreneurs, founders, startups into the financial services space. So this is one area where definitely we have a lot of activity happening. Definitely, we mentioned before healthcare. Healthcare, there is a real commitment as well, for example, in the UAE from the government to push the agenda when it comes to healthcare, biotech, and life sciences in general. So this is another area where we see a lot of movement, activity with startups that might be new ideas coming in the region. Education as well is quite big in the region, given the fact that probably historically and as well in the present days, the access to education in the region has been lagging behind compared to other places in the world, right? But still, as we said before, there are young populations here. There are dynamics and drivers in the economy that are making flourishing a range of ideas and solutions around education. And probably the pandemic here accelerated as well a number of considerations. But education is also something we see a lot of potential. Then we see other two sectors here that are very interesting, or two or three. Definitely energy, taking it broadly, energy including also solutions in agri-tech, desert tech, in clean tech, climate change, of course, and water, for example. So all of this is definitely an area that is at the core probably of where governments are trying to diversify economy from oil, right? So and there are some unique specific considerations as well that apply to this region, from the conformation of the region, from the environment perspective, and so on and so forth. So energy at large, I would say, is another area that we are definitely invested in. In fact, Microsoft also invested into a global center of excellence in AI for energy core, which is exciting as well. And then I would mention retail and travel. Because retail, here we are working. If you take the UAE, for example, first of all, you have these conglomerates, right? So historically, you didn't have foreign ownership on businesses. So you have sometimes these conglomerates that have 100 brands under their umbrella. So the scale or the impact of testing or deploying new solutions across this number of brands could be very interesting. At the same time, it's not a news that in this region there are retailers that are doing even 80% of their revenues from mobile, whereas in still some of the more mature markets in countries in regions like Europe, that's not the case yet, right? So there is some unique as well situations that is pushing innovation when it comes to mobile commerce and experiences, user experience in retail with this online offline malls and e-commerce, which is pretty unique. Which is also, we see a lot of solutions there. And travel, given the pandemic, we have players like Emirates, Etihad, and a lot of initiatives here around the travel, tourism, hospitality, and airlines, right? So from Aviation X with Emirates, that are trying to redefine the moonshots, or the redesign the experience, or the airports of the future, or the travel experience of the future, to Interact Hub, which is Emirates and Dubai Tourism coming together with Accenture, Microsoft around incubating or accelerating travel tech startups. We see the intention of positioning UAE, for example, as the hub, the global hub for innovation in airlines, in travel, in hospitality, with even more emphasis, of course, post-pandemic on what's the new travel experience, right? What's new in the experience that users or people will have when traveling, safety. Accessibility as well when traveling, and payments and so on and so forth. So these are the industries and verticals we see more traction, more dynamics, more things happening. That said, of course, as I said, Microsoft is a technology that is more an underlying layer to empower, right? So if we have startups that are not in this industry, we are more than welcome. We are more than happy to work with them. But in terms of traction, I would say these industries, from financial services, healthcare, education, energy, retail, and travel, are the ones where we see great ideas and founders investing, and investors as well paying attention of what's going on across the region.
Right. So finally, my question is that how is the VC industry evolving, and is Microsoft startups actually investing some money in this startup? So if you can give me a composite answer to both.
Absolutely. Look, it's a very interesting question because, of course, as we said before, we are a nascent ecosystem, right? So when we say that, it means that the different components are still nascent when it comes to founders and startups, when it comes to ecosystem players, when it comes also to the VC industry, right? So definitely we see that in the recent years, we definitely have seen the maturity of VCs in the region growing, right? So there have been more capital deployed, and actually right now, if you look at the market, there is probably even too much liquidity. So raising money probably for a startup here in the region is not going to be a big deal. The challenge or the opportunity, I would say, is how that should evolve to turn that into real smart money. So because money comes with a cost, right? Nothing is free. So as a founder or for the entrepreneurs, it's important to understand that capital is available, but that capital should be smart money, right? It's money that comes with value, the value of this venture capital having the right connections, the right network, offering access to right opportunities, maybe planning ahead of time in terms of exit, right? So the whole thing. So one thing that is probably still needs to evolve or to get better is definitely not just local capital, but also how these VCs on one hand can connect with more global pools of capital and global opportunities. So build that bridge or those corridors in a more sustainable and efficient way. And on the other side as well, I would say how that money can enable access to real opportunities locally. So so the conversation should be more on value, not just okay, as a VC, I'm looking for a return in 3-5 years, and you see most of the investments in the region are polarized towards a late seed, pre-series A, series A, right? So what happens before, what happens after, right? So we still have some gaps probably to address, but probably the opportunity there will be for more consolidations as well of different venture capital into something bigger that makes sense to scale startups even further. We start seeing an increasing number of exits in the region, still relatively low, I mean, of course, compared to more mature ecosystems, but trends are healthy. There are still probably some key relationships and key initiatives that need to happen and to make it stronger. But the trends looks in terms of sophistication, maturity are bigger. As Microsoft, we as Microsoft for Startups, we don't take equity in startups. We don't charge any fees for our services. We just work as an investment with startups that are willing to build on Microsoft technology to help with access to technology, access to markets, investor readiness, as we said before. We do have a venture arm, though, called M12, and they look into investments at the right stage, potentially for acquisitions as well. So we on the ground, we do a sort of due diligence to filter and share the opportunities that are at the right stage, not to waste anyone else's time. But of course, we also help startups in the region with access to investors. We organize investor demo days and corporate access days as well for startups in our programs. So definitely, we are embedded into that ecosystem. So we are definitely eager and happy to help startups with either advice on their next round of funding, with training or empowerment when it comes to investor readiness, and connections when it makes sense.
Roberto, thank you so much. This was very, very comprehensive, and it's a great overview of what Microsoft is doing. Before I let you go, final question. How many startups do you see coming up over the next, say, 2 to 3 years in this region?
Look, it's a very interesting question because nobody has a crystal ball. But for example, now that we run this first applications, right, round of receiving applications for GrowthX, for example, I can tell you we received a number in the order of thousands. So of course, in these thousands, there is some noise. There is some startups that are very, very early stage. Then you have the whole spectrum, right? So, but there is data there that is reassuring of there is a lot of appetite, and there are definitely more ideas there than what we would think of, right? So, given the increased investments into entrepreneurship from governments. Given the increased attention from schools and university around entrepreneurship from a younger age, given the more participation from corporates as well when it comes to innovation, because of course either it's a fear of being disrupted or it's pure investment or acquisition kind of a strategy,
right.
But also given the more availability of capital and more connectedness with global ecosystems. So these indicators are good, because you see, again, if you look at the broader region, we have countries with very large populations and young population with the right demographics and the right appetite for something, right? The necessity as well. Think about countries like Egypt, like Pakistan, like even Turkey and Saudi, and then the whole Africa continent, right? So I believe the numbers might be significant and important in the next 2 to 3 years, 3 to 4 years. With these trends and this evolution going on, definitely we will have idea stage startups in the order of thousands. And then, of course, the thing is we really need to, each one of the ecosystem players need to give their contribution to make it a funnel, a real funnel, right? Because of course we know it's a hard work, and 95% or more of startups will fail, and so on and so forth. But there are real problems. There are the right trends happening. There is a young population, so prospectively in long term, we see an opportunity for thousands of startups to be created, to create new jobs across the region, and to have this more agile and way of looking at innovation as well across the region. So our mandate here is to make sure to build a sort of awareness and skills around, okay, we have these talents, we have these opportunities, we have these problems. So let's make sure we have founders that are trying to solve real problems in the region, that are not just trying to copycat things that work elsewhere. Right. Nothing wrong with that, because if you have the right strategy behind it, it can work. But also there are problems that still society is facing. So definitely, as long as that there is people that have the right skills and knowledge to tap into those, and have the opportunity to fail and to start again and fail and start again, definitely the region has the right numbers. Has the right numbers for scale, has the right numbers for building in the order of thousands of startups. Of course, not all of those will become unicorns, but again, I would put the attention not on becoming a unicorn, but even if you exit and you don't become a unicorn, or even if you are a sustainable business that you are having impact across the region, this is huge success for the region at large, right? So. Yeah, I mean, the opportunity is definitely there. There are, of course, some barriers and gaps, when we think about this as one region, it's not one region, right? So, okay, 400 million people in MENA, but if you're a fintech and you need to cope with 3 financial services regulations in the UAE only, and then you need to scale it, it's hard work. Yeah. So, but I'm confident that by a few of these countries leading the way on what it could look like, they will drive as well the other countries to follow, and then with a young population, and with also people from this region that got their experience abroad and they're willing to come back and give back to their countries, to their region.
Right.
There will be plenty of ideas and entrepreneurs and startups that will be able to build from this region.
SaaS Stories is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform. PitchLink enables high-quality interactions between buyers and sellers through presentation and discussion modules. Sellers create personalized sales presentations and reach out to prospects through a non-intrusive, buyer-qualified engagement. PitchLink requires no installation or download and holds the entire repository of sales collaterals and buyer-seller conversation. Talk to us to know more about how you can engage with customers without intrusion. Call us on 990-216-3132. That is 990-216-3132. Fantastic, Roberto. That's a great note to end on, and I look forward to talking to you and following this story as it emerges.
Looking forward, and thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm a supporter of what you're doing, because the more we have, knowledge sharing and listening to people with their experiences, the better it is for the ecosystem. So definitely, I'm a supporter of what you're doing.
Thank you. We have a fantastic lineup over the next couple of episodes with great conversations, including Raj Seth, co-founder of Flydata, Rajiv Nathan, founder of startup Hypeman, Lazare Rosilin, co-founder and CEO of Spoke, and many more. Subscribe in your favorite podcast app so you do not miss a single episode. Thanks for listening. Thank you for being with us today and listening to this episode of SaaS Stories. This is where I speak with the dreamers and visionaries who dared to think ahead and build world-class SaaS products. We hope this conversation helped you with the insights that you can go and apply right now to your own SaaS journey. We hope to have you here with us again in the next episode of SaaS Stories. SaaS Stories is brought to you by PitchLink, the buyer-seller engagement platform, and is a BizCast original production.